What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series Quinlan Vos from the Clone Wars. What an amazing and out of left field reveal for the Black Series this was. As a person who grew up with the Clone Wars show as a kid and someone who owned the animated Quinlan Vos figure from the 3 3/4 line back in the day, I was stoked to see one of my favorite Jedi action figures make his way into the Black Series. I picked up Quinlan Vos on a pre-order through Big Bad Toy Store. That's the place I go to for most of my action figure orders and pre-orders. Definitely recommend checking them out. If you're a collector here in the US, they're a smaller business, so I love to give them my support. They have a great pile of loot feature, highly recommend them. Quinlan Vos is a fan channel release here in 2026, meaning you won't find him at most of your major retailers like your Walmarts and your Targets, but you will find him at places like GameStop and most of your online action figure retailers. Quinlan comes in the standard style of packaging for the Black Series in 2026 with the Black Series logo on the front of the box, a big plastic window showing you the figure and his accessories here. We have the character name in vertical text over here, as well as that he is number 22 in the Clone Wars subline. Down below the window, we have in the color for the Clone Wars subline a banner with the Clone Wars show name on there. We also have some logos and legalese down at the bottom. On this side of the box, we have our mural art here. You can see Quinlan here, and I believe that there is the planet in the background where he and Obi-Wan duel against Cad Bane, and they find Zero the Hutt has been slain by none other than Cy Snoodles. Down below that, we have the character name there, and then on the back of the box here, we have a lot of the same stuff that we saw on the other sides of the packaging, like the Black Series logo, that same mural image we saw on the side of the box blown up a bit, the character name, and a bio in about 1,000 different languages. This bio reads, "While on a mission to kill Count Dooku, expert tracker Quinlan Vos fell in love with assassin Asajj Ventress, leading to a perilous dalliance with the dark side." We reiterate, Quinlan is number 22 in the Clone Wars subline, and then we have all our legalese down at the bottom here. Guys, please don't feed this action figure to your babies. On this side of the box, we have more legalese, and on the top, nothing. That about wraps up the packaging on this guy, so let's get him opened and we'll check him out. Alright guys, here's Quinlan out of the box, but of course, before we take a look at the figure, let's take a look at his accessories. So of course, we do get his lightsaber, which this is a very interesting thing here. So his lightsaber hilt is actually much longer than that of your average Jedi. That is accurate to what we see from Quinlan Vos, especially in the Clone Wars show. He has a much longer saber hilt than most of your other Jedi do. You can see on the lightsaber blade, he has a pretty dull looking silver plastic, but for some reason this looks better than some of the other ones I've seen. Like, this looks better than what I saw on the Jedi Master Dooku figure that I recently reviewed. The lightsaber hilt towards the top really reminds me a lot of Qui-Gon Jinn's saber. You can see some of the black painted on there, as well as the red for the little button there. There is a peg sculpted in near the pommel of the hilt for this to attach to his belt. I'll show you that more later in the review. And then, of course, we have a nice, deep, vibrant green for the lightsaber blade. This can, of course, be removed from the hilt. That's what that looks like separated. And then, of course, we also have a swoosh effect for the lightsaber as well. So this is one of the wider variants here. There are 3 different sizes that Hasbro will kind of jump between for these here, and you can see here this is all done in one solid color, and this does also connect into the lightsaber hilt as well. A nice taut connection, and it does pass the shake test. So very nice accessories here, and good to always have an extra accessory for the lightsabers, especially for a character that's very acrobatic and uses one frequently between comic books and TV shows. So now let's take a look at Quinlan here. So I will be totally honest, I am already pretty astounded by most namely the articulation on this figure. But before we do that, of course, let's take a look at the figure itself. The first thing I want to point out here is just how amazing the likeness is here. They really nailed this one. If you look here, you can see his dreads are sculpted really nicely. Lots of very fine sculpt detail that made it into the final product here. And the hair is done on a very pliable, piece of plastic here, so you should be able to move this around without much issue here. You can see they added some paint here. He does have a little hair tie down toward the end on the right side of his head there, and the face is just amazing. They got the eyes down right. The stripe that goes across the bridge of his nose also looks really nice. The eyebrows are painted nicely. He's got a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow here, very accurate to what we see again in the comic books and the Clone Wars show. And overall, this is just a very, very amazing likeness. I'm very impressed by this. I really like what they did for Quinlan's costume here. I like that they went with the Clone Wars look. Obviously, that's what I'm most partial to. But what I love is this piece of armor over his right shoulder. The paint on this is great. It's also painted to look a little bit weathered there. You can see if you look really closely, they did some dot matrix to add just a little bit of weathering on top of that. And I love that. It makes it look like he's actually seen some action or that it's been crudely applied. This is an overlay that is separate from the overlay for the outer tunics and the pauldron piece here. This is really, really nice, and this will be great for articulation to have this as its own separate piece that moves independently. You can see here for that overlay, it's pretty plain. He's got the tabards here, which are sculpted really nice. I will say for all the cloth sculpting on this figure, it is sculpted very nicely. All the wrinkles and folds of the fabric when they are hit by the light really add a lot of depth to the sculpt here. You can also see just some basic detail for the armor up here covering his chest and his upper back, and I don't expect much more than that. I will say though, they did a great job getting the musculature of his arms. Again, for a comic book character, an animated character translated into live action, I'm glad that they made this guy look a lot more muscular because that is accurate to what we see in the media that he originates from. What I love too is how they got these tattoos. This was one of my favorite details on my Quinlan action figure as a kid, my animated 3 3/4 one, were the tattoos on his left arm. I love that they got the tattoos done right here, and much like my comments on the shoulder armor, I like the grittiness to these paint applications here. They look crudely applied, and I love that. It really fits Quinlan's character as well. Quinlan's got some wrappings here on his forearms. These are a separate piece from the flesh tone of the forearms there. You can also see those wrappings translate down into his hand. They are sculpted all the way, and then the skin tone is painted on for the fingers there. As for Quinlan's belt, we have a lot of painted detail. So the belt itself is pretty basic. It's got a nice reddish brown color that's painted on there, and then the outer belt here has some nice brown and some black. We have a nice like teal color here for the belt buckle, and then we also have some silver here surrounding the piece that is sculpted to hold the lightsaber hilt there. Again, we'll show that off how that connects later, and there are just a couple other pouches here around the belt that are also painted. You can see a little bit of paint bleed on mine, but aside from the minor paint bleed here, that is really awesome detail to see on this figure. Now, the belt and the lower parts of the tabards are all one overlay, and then there's a separate overlay for the next layer of tunics, and you can see that the outer layer on the tabards here, very pliable, thin plastic, very, very nice here, should help us a lot when we're articulating this guy in more dynamic posing. And then the layer underneath that, which is in more of like almost a deeper brown, almost olive color, you can see it's 1/2 cut, and then in the front it is cut into quarters, so I love how that looks too. The pants, very basic here, just basic gray pants. Pretty sure these are reused because they do feature the sculpted line for the thigh swivel, and then the boots here are also looking pretty good. I'm pretty sure these are new sculpt as far as the boots go, but they're pretty basic. You can see the soles of the boots are painted here, and just the outer tread is sculpted in, but overall it's got a nice look to it, and really I'd say overall I'm really, really impressed by the silhouette that this figure gives off. I would say this is a really, really just a perfect adaptation from the comic book art and the animation into a live action look. Now, as far as Quinlan's articulation goes, he's almost entirely a new figure, so he's going to feature a lot of the latest and greatest in Black Series articulation, and I will say already, that's probably the thing that blows me away most about this figure and has me really excited to pose him up. So at the neck, we're going to have a barbell joint, so one ball joint goes into the top of the neck, one goes into the head. We have an extra ball joint at the base of the neck as well. You can see we can get plenty of range out of that, so we can have him look down quite a bit. I will say the way that the dreads are sculpted, they do kind of stick out and kind of float in midair when he's looking down. And then when you have him look up, it does also stretch pretty nicely. That thin, pliable plastic works really well, so you can still get him to look up a little bit, which is awesome. You can get some good tilt out of that head as well as your right and left. Underneath the overlay for the armor here, we have a butterfly butterfly joint sculpted in, look at how much range you can get forward and back out of that. That is really, really impressive, and I'm very happy to see that. We do also have a hinge and swivel at the shoulders, so the hinge is going to get you to about that 90-degree mark. That's pretty typical for Black Series, and then of course we have a 360-degree swivel. The overlay does not hinder that at all. We also have a hinge and swivel at the elbows here. It's a very deep cut. You can see you can get plenty of range well past that 90-degree mark there. This is actually about the limitations of the human anatomy, so I can't ask for anything more there. And we also have a swivel at the top of the elbow. Now, the wrappings, being their own separate piece, have their own swivel as well. This acts similarly to a gauntlet swivel on an armored character. And then we have our roly-poly wrists, or our ball-jointed wrists here, which are awesome. These are great. I prefer these over hinge and swivels just because they're omnidirectional and they're not locked into just, you know, one axis. It's really nice to have that option. One thing I did want to point out real quick is if you are swiveling the right arm, which has the shoulder armor on the O-ring system, try to keep that armor with the arm if you're swiveling it more than about 180 degrees, just to keep everything together and keep it from stressing the plastic and maybe ripping. We do have a ball joint at the waist here. You can see that gets you some extra added range, and the overlays do a good job of moving themselves out of the way to accommodate for that. At the hips here, we have another ball joint which has plenty of range, even with multiple layers of overlays. You can see with that thin pliable plastic they're made out of, everything moves out of the way very, very nicely. With that sculpted thigh cut in there, we have the ability for extra articulation, and of course with the thigh cut being there, it's not really an issue because you can't even see it. Then at the knees, we have a hinge and swivel, so the hinge gets you about 90 degrees, maybe just shy of 90 degrees, and that's pretty typical for Black Series once again. And then we have a swivel at the top of the knee, and then of course down at the ankles we have our Hasbro Classic, the forward facing pin for rocker, as well as a hinge which gets you some really, really nice forward and some nice back as well. So overall, this figure is amazing in the looks department and very, very impressive in the articulation department as well. I'm super stoked to get this guy posed up. So we'll start off with the lightsaber on the belt first. So the peg goes into the peg hole very nicely here, and if you kind of want a more accurate look, you can kind of bring this forward or swing it back, and it does pass the shake test, which is good. Here's a really good folded arms expression for Quinlan here. Quinlan is a very nonchalant kind of guy in the Clone Wars show, so this is a really nice pose that you can get for this character, and I think this looks really natural on this character, and I love that you can get a very, very good silhouette for this guy. We definitely want to emulate a lot of sass with this kind of character. Removing the lightsaber from the belt and attaching our lightsaber blade here. Now, most Jedi are cross draw, so we're going to get Quinlan with the lightsaber in hand there. In the right hand, it sits pretty naturally here, and it does pass the shake test as well. Kicking things off with a nice wide athletic stance for Quinlan here. You can see here all the overlays move themselves out of the way nicely. They can look a little stiff because, you know, that is the disadvantage to not going with soft goods here, but I will say overall it's still a really good look for this character. I think the cuts were put in the right place on this guy here, and this is a great, nice, wide, athletic pose for him. I'm really happy with this one. We can also get some really nice two-handed lightsaber holding poses with Quinlan here, and between the butterfly joints, the ball-jointed wrists, and the longer lightsaber hilt, we can get some very, very natural-looking poses that are very easy to do as well. Here's Quinlan utilizing the swoosh blade that he comes with, and I think that the swoosh blade is just a really nice accessory in general. It adds a lot more dynamic to the posing on the shelf, and just that extra swoosh effect really helps to flesh out those poses. And of course, here is a nice balanced one-legged pose for Quinlan here. Just a very nice center of gravity on the figure, and I'm really happy with the athletic poses you can get with him. But with that, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this review. I have to stop myself from continuing to pose this figure because I'm just having too much fun doing it, and I'm never going to be able to stop finding cool poses for this figure. He's very naturally posable. He's got great articulation. He looks amazing. A great mix, really, of some of the comic interpretations of him and, of course, his animated Clone Wars look. I'm really, really happy with this figure. This is a serious contender for Figure of the Year for me. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, it gives you access to exclusive badges, priority replies in my comment section, you get to vote on what I review next for the channel, just like the Patreon members do, and you get to check out all my reviews early here on YouTube. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could always head over to the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off all units, fire at will. 1-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. Gotta hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?